All right. Hello, everyone. This is Bobby here with the second Beyond the Boulevard podcast. And I'm here with Zion Barrios, and he's in Berkeley.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, dude? And also with his friend He.
Hi.
What's up, He? So if you guys haven't heard the Beyond the Boulevard podcast before, the first episode was with Kyle Baker, and these are a little bit different from the regular Below the Boulevard podcasts, because they're kind of done spur of the moment, and the production quality is probably a bit lower because of that, and we kind of deviate from the regular format of having artists on the show, and we just have whoever we want to talk to at that moment. So it could be just totally random people. So it could be Nick and I recording with a guest. It could be just Nick and I. It could be just me with someone else, or just Nick, or just David. Anyone who's affiliated with the show can put up whatever they want under the Beyond the Boulevard brand or whatever. So Zion, you're in Berkeley right now.
Yeah, we me and he just got back from a nice pho place, so
Good.
we're feeling nice and toasty. So it's a lot colder up here.
Is it pretty cold up there?
Right now it is. Yeah, we had a little rain, so temperature always drops. But yeah, we're just chilling and feeling pretty good now.
Cool.
Right.
So it's been raining the same way it's been raining in California, then, like Southern California.
Yeah, it's actually been. This is probably. I think it's. I'm hoping it'll keep up, but it's the most rain I can remember happening.
For a week.
In like consistently. I can't remember the last time it rained this consistently.
Yeah, it's probably been
sad.
like a year. Like,
Yeah.
in Southern California.
Yeah, it. How long did it rain down there?
It didn't rain today, but I think this was the first day it didn't in like 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Probably 2 days. I think it rained for like 2 days straight. Yeah, I don't think it rained yesterday either, actually, but it did rain for 2 days at least straight.
Have you had anyone complaining yet?
No, fuck that.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think it's insane. First of all, I can't remember. Like, this is a big deal when it rains.
Yeah, dude.
I can't remember the last time it rained this consistently, and then it's a big deal, and then it's funny because I still hear people kind of complain about it.
Are you
And I'm
serious?
like, it just started. Like
Yeah.
people talking about when, like, oh, when's the rain gonna let up? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's let up for years. Like
It could stop raining. It could rain for 5 days straight and then stop, and it would still be considered like it was letting up. Like,
Yeah.
if it's rained
Yeah.
5 days in the past year, that's not a lot of rain. Calm down.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So okay. So Zion, we've had a lot of like pretty cool conversations, I think. And so you're just, you're a friend of mine, and we're just talking because we like to talk a lot.
yeah, we might as well put it out there that we know each other.
Yeah.
We're good buddies.
Right. And he what your friends with Zion, obviously. And what you're out of Vietnam.
Yeah, I came from Vietnam 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And what do you do?
Right now I'm a student at Cal. I'm
Okay.
a second year student,
Uh-huh.
and I study nuclear engineering and material engineering.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And Zion was saying that you like to have some off the wall conversations, also, I guess.
Yeah,
we talk a lot about stuff like philosophy, that kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah,
Cool.
we used to go on runs and just towards the end of the run, you reach kind of like there's this moment, you're kind of jazzed from all the drugs, your brain's being flooded with. But then there's also kind of a rhythm to it, and then you stop somewhere. I don't know. We like running outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like literally running, like going on jogs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We just go for a run, and then get to some destination, and then just chill there and then talk about something.
Cool.
None. It's not like we scheduled it. I mean, that's
Very spontaneous.
yeah.
Very unexpected, spontaneous.
But yeah, so we just like chill, catch our breath, and then maybe talk about something.
Cool. So, I'm sorry. That sound was me stirring my my tea.
That's okay.
I won't do that anymore. Ooh, that was a pepper shaker. Okay, this is my first time recording in my house on my table, so
All right.
these are new
new difficulties. You might
new
have to deal
environments.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So the reason we're doing this, I texted you earlier today. I started reading this book today called "Science Does Not Disprove God," and I didn't get very far into it at all. But I got like 3 pages into it.
Yeah.
Then I was like,
I read the jacket cover.
Yeah.
I feel the need to talk about it now.
Dude, that's actually kind of what happened. Like, I didn't even get. I had this thought that it's not really related to anything that I read in the book, but
All right.
yeah. But what I was thinking was that like, if you look at the universe, how we're all made of the universe, and I guess when I talk about the universe, what I mean is like all the elements in it as being like the building blocks of everything, and like the universe is just all these elements, and then you put those elements in a certain arrangement, and it's a star, and then you put it in a different arrangement, and it's ice, or it's dirt, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all made of these like components, right? And then you
realize you just kind of named like different elements, like fire, water.
Yeah. But those are all made of like the same kind of things, right? I mean, they're all made from this like the elements.
Yeah.
So you put them like in a certain arrangement. Like there's a lot of hydrogen in a star, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends
Or not.
on which star. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah.
I'll defer to he on that one.
Yeah. So, and then you like, okay, so then there's hydrogen in water also.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. So anyway, everything's made out of these ingredients, and then you put the ingredients in a certain order, and it creates like animals, and then you arrange them further, and or in a different way, and there's like humans.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at it from that way, I was thinking that like the universe itself like is alive because we're made of it.
That's actually that's what you said. You might be thinking
Might
about
be
it.
the case. Yeah. It's interesting because we only know a very small portion of the universe, and that small portions we understand by using quantum mechanics. And even though quantum mechanics is so complex, but we can barely solve a very tiny portion of the universe, and like 80% of the like the other part of the universe we cannot understand, even if we use quantum mechanics. And a lot of people trying to say that those are the part that nothing can be solved. Like we don't have anything to understand that. And right now, most scientists say that quantum mechanics doesn't work at all in those parts, like the dark matter part.
Hey, I'm sorry, man. Could I? I'm gonna turn off the video. I'm not sure if it helps with the bandwidth, but I'm having some trouble hearing you.
Okay.
So let me.
All
I
right.
guess I should maybe get rid of some of my tabs that are open too.
All right, we'll turn up the.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is gonna help at all, but let's just try it and see what happens. All right, I'm gonna turn it off now. Okay. Did you guys turn yours off?
We're about to.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right. I'm sorry, dude. Could you repeat some of that? Go back to, I guess. Just start.
So right now, so based on our understanding is that we only know a very small portion of the universe, and we understand them by using like quantum mechanics to like understand relativity of the universe. But there's a large portion called dark matter that we don't understand at all. And a lot of people argue that even with our most sophisticated like math we cannot understand. So it's really a big question right now is what the universe, what does it consist of? Because we only know a tiny bit of the universe.
So what we consider to be dark matter could be like an element in itself, or
Dark matter, the reason we call dark matter because we don't know what it is.
okay,
We have no understanding of it, but we know that it is there, but we just don't know what it is.
okay,
And that kind of has to do with the fact that most of the universe is occupied by nothing, or
Right.
what researchers consider to be dark matter.
Right. Like what gives you mass? Because mass is a particle that gives you mass.
Mhm.
We know it's there, but we cannot see it, and we cannot develop the math that proves that it is there. But we know that must be a particle that gives you mass.
Yeah, because we exist.
It exists.
Right.
Yes, that's what we are.
Okay. So is dark matter the equivalent of like the way we see fish swimming in water, and we know that we have an atmosphere here on Earth of oxygen and nitrogen and whatever. So whatever there is in space, I mean, it's definitely not it's not oxygen, but it is a sort of soup made of something. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm trying to say that we just don't have a lot of understanding about the universe.
Yeah.
Right now we have a very basic understanding of it. Like the Earth is just some very basic understanding of the universe, because there's a lot of part in the universe that do not look like the Earth at all, and that does not all the law of physics that apply in the Earth
Mm-hmm.
doesn't apply on that part of the universe.
Okay.
I think it's also kind of difficult for people to like conceptual. Like, okay, every movie you've ever seen, like space movie, where
Right.
it's like you want to envision that the universe is something. It's something that it's like your fish tank analogy,
Mm-hmm.
like it's easy to you see black and then stars pitted against it, right? Well, the only reason you see black is because there is no light. There's an absence of light there. And I think people maybe misconstrue dark matter with that blackness that they're seeing.
Right.
But dark matter it's only named that because they don't they have no idea what it is. Yeah. And it's really hard to, I guess, even conceptualize the universe, because to think about this thing that we're contained in, you have to, you want to take the leap and assume that there's, that there's a physical space, and if there's a physical space and there's some type of boundary, which might imply that there's something beyond that space. And so what is that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's really kind of difficult for people. Even when we talk about the universe, it's difficult to really grasp it, because it's like it's the sense of scale. Like it's in the same way that how can an ant possibly know what is outside of its scale of its like represented reality.
Yeah.
Like how it couldn't, like it couldn't possibly understand the dimensions of a room that it was in. And obviously we're I guess more higher functioning than an ant, but I think it's the same. It's maybe the same problem.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the ant, being in a room or whatever, and not knowing the scope of the room that it's in, or it'll never know that there's another room next door,
Right.
That's maybe bigger than the first room, or it'll never know, like the ant that's walking across my table doesn't even know that it's indoors.
No, it doesn't know it's on a table. Yeah,
it doesn't know it's on a table.
Yeah.
And the reason I actually checked out this book from the library was because I feel like when people do try to use science to disprove God, it's the same thing as thinking that, like, if there is a God, us understanding it, if it's as powerful as every religion claims that God is, it would be like explaining to this ant what a motorcycle is, or that it's inside a room, or that where there's actually a moon, in the sky.
Right.
Like the ant will never ever even come close to grasping that there's another room next door, let alone that there's a moon in the sky. And
Right.
that like us proving that there is a God would be, it's analogous to us, showing the ant how the iPhone works.
Just something that it's just, I mean, totally impossible. Well, just beyond comprehension for.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I think. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if, like, I don't see the point in trying to disprove God.
Yeah.
I mean, especially from like a scientific perspective, I can understand maybe like practical or what people claim to be practical reasons, and that's usually tied to what people fault religion for, and that always comes down to like the conflicts that have been associated with religion and things like that, and other types of like prejudices and things like religions breed in people or are used as justifications for things. But I mean, I don't know, the whole idea that if there is some type of like a God, right, and not some type of like anthropomorphic man in some faraway place scrutinizing everything we do, but like some incomprehensible force, that doesn't even, that is so beyond us that it's useless to even think about. I don't know. I don't see like, I don't know. I don't know if like, what do you mean when you say you like, do you think like, have you come across like science? I mean, because some people say that science is, trying to disprove God. But I don't know if like, that doesn't seem like it's usually like the explicit purpose of a lot of studies or, and like research,
Yeah, it's weird because you're totally right about that. Like, when does anyone ever conduct an experiment proving that there is a God? There's probably a few studies out there where a guy did it, and those are the ones that people point to all the time when they try to argue for or against it. But it seems to be the tool that atheists use to prove that there isn't a God. They use science, but what they're refuting is, like, to me, like, it's like petty. Like, okay, so you're like, people argue that if you believe in God, then you're believing the Earth is 6,000 years old, and that it was created in 7 days, and you can still believe there's some ultimate force without subscribing to that idea.
Right? Because I mean, one is like those two ideas, which are like false, but they're ascribed to like the Christian religion, predominantly like most like religious texts.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there's a big difference between believing in religion and believing in God.
Yeah, I it's weird because I feel like a lot of people who are religious can't understand what you just said.
Yeah, they can't reconcile the fact that the certain like the teachings or the traditions of their religion, they may have had other functions, like certain like dietary prescriptions, they were, if people research them, they might have other functions like keeping people from getting sick. I mean,
Totally.
Like how pigs are a common theme, like a common taboo across religious cultures, and the reason is pigs, people pigs are kind of generally filthy animals. Like, people get sick from like trichinosis, things like that. Also, like shellfish, kind of the same idea maybe. And certain dietary prescriptions like may have other functions, and that might hold true for other beliefs and traditions. And also just the fact that this was like, these were contemporary people, like at the the contemporary people trying to understand like natural phenomenon of the world, and trying to explain those things, which is completely different, I think, than the idea of a higher force.
There is a famous saying that nothing is more dangerous than a sharp image of a fuzzy concept. People constantly trying to defy God, and we don't know what God actually is, because we never prove that there is a God, and we also never disprove that there is a God. And it's a huge misconception to reduce or simplify the whole concept of God into a definition.
Right.
And also, you also want to look at science and religion. There's a lot of similarity, because science is based on the law, like the law of physics. People don't prove the law of physics. People just observe them, and they cannot find an exception. So they accept that it is true, just like religion. So that's what a faith involved in science. And there's a pretty famous article arguing that whether science and religion are the same, because we both based on observations and faith at the end.
Yeah, and they're both used as science becomes a religion when people are so bent on every answer lying in science right now. It becomes almost a religion. Would you say that?
No, I would say the fundamental concept of science based on faith and observations. Faith, I would say, because there's no way we can prove the thermodynamic laws, for example. We cannot prove it, but we can only observe it. So there's a intertwine between the concept of God and the concept of higher being and the concept of science. But science is practical. We've proven many things, but at the core of science, the fundamental level of science, they're just observations. We cannot prove them.
Right.
We cannot prove that gravity. We cannot prove the third law of physics, the first law of physics. We just observe them.
So, something that I guess that I've noticed is that, like, you were saying that science and religion are sort of similar to each other. The one thing that science has going for it is that it is open to change as soon as it's disproven.
That's what's
right. It's open to change. Right. That is correct.
And religion isn't. I mean, there's still people that are arguing that the Earth was created in 7 days and that we didn't evolve from another primate. But science welcomes all that.
Right. Let me be clear that when I say religion is mean faith, like the higher being, the concept of higher being, because we never seen the higher being, and we never can prove or disprove a higher being. And also, for example, a movie Interstellar.
Yeah.
When they travel into a wormhole, they access the fifth dimension, and my professor and I have discussed and tried to prove it. It's possible when you go into a wormhole, you can access a fifth dimension. And when you're in the fifth dimension, you can access any point of time. Like, you can go back to your past and accept that and change the past. Like, we don't have that ability right now on Earth, which means that there's so many uncertainty we don't know out there in the universe. There could be a high certainty that there must be a higher being.
Yeah.
Or something.
So I want to ask you something about that, and then I also want to get back to what Zion, you were saying something about religion. It sort of seemed to me like what you were saying is that religion is a collection of beliefs that are like conducive to our survival, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, like the whole idea of a social contract. Don't kill someone. Don't steal from them. Don't
Love your
sleep
neighbor.
with. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
sleep with. Yeah, a lot of things that are attributed to religion, but hold a lot of social value. There's a lot of things a lot of people call morality, but there's a lot of use to having those types of George Carlin used to talk about stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, and
Okay. I'm sorry. Well, let me ask he something about what he was saying in regards to Interstellar, and then let's get back into what you're talking about, Z.
Okay.
So how do we know that the fifth dimension is a place where time is a physical like thing that you
Um,
can walk through?
It's been proven by like mathematical concept. For example, if you're in the 2 dimensions, you cannot. If someone in the 2 dimensions, there's no the depth. There's just the y-x and y-axis.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot really distinguish objects, and only the person from the 3rd dimensions can see the picture from the 2nd dimension, right? The 2 dimensions. So similarly, if you go on the 5th dimensions, is a similar proof that you can pinpoint any point in time, and you can select those times, and you can just like a video.
Okay.
And I didn't do the proof myself, but we discussed. I discussed with my professor a lot about this, and yeah, it's possible that that's how the 5th dimension is defined, like in terms of time and in terms of like dimensions.
Okay, so the let's just, I guess to put it simply, like 2 dimensions is a piece of paper, right? 3 dimensions would be like a cardboard box that has depth to it. What would be the 4th dimension?
The 4th dimension is 3 dimension and time, but you are confined in the time scale, the time frame. Like on Earth, we're in the 4 dimensions.
Right,
But
because we're in time.
Right, because Dr. DeGrasse Tyson say, when you meet someone, you always have to say the time and the location.
Right.
You never say the time without the locations and the location without the time. Okay. And
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You don't say the location without saying the time, and you don't say the time without saying the location, right? And so according to what he said, that you are free to move in space, but you're not free to move in time on Earth, because time is just marching forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
On the next dimension, the 5th dimension, you can access any point in time.
Like it were physical.
Yeah, it give you 1 more degree of freedom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Wow, I never understood that before.
Yeah, it's a funky concept.
Yeah, so we're in 4 dimensions. You're subject to time, and you're sort of on this conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And then in the 5th dimension, you step off that conveyor belt.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Right.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Ooh, my brain is melting right now, guys. Okay.
Let's let it sink in for a little bit.
Let it sink in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really amazing how much we don't know about the universe.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like I can't believe that people use science to...
That's our show.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Zion? He?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why it's so surprising to me that people use science, like they feel like it's even in the same ballpark, or it's even fit to prove or disprove the existence of God, because we know so little about it. Like we couldn't even, like, if we told someone 10,000 years ago that we're gonna have this this flat item that's, I guess you would compare it to a rock, to someone of that time, and tell them that we could use this rock to talk to someone else, or this like sort of stone or something, a tablet, they wouldn't even they wouldn't even be able to comprehend that.
Right.
And here we are, and
But
it's something everyone has.
right. It's actually interesting to notice that like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, there was I wish I can space travel. That's what we're doing now. We space travel on the phone. We can convey a message, our thinking through the phone. That's an analogy to space travel.
Sort of like right now.
Yes, sort of right now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like, what if the next 1,000 years, what would happen? We can travel in time. We can create a like in Futurama, a movie. We can create a fifth dimension. We can just jump in the wormhole and go to any point in time. That could possibly happen.
Yeah, the idea that we're hours from each other right now, with no real connection to each other, it is pretty mind-blowing.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, I might as well be speaking to a ghost right now. Like, what's
Right.
what's the difference?
Right. Right.
I mean, there's obvious differences, but fuck you. Come on,
Right. Right.
work with me a little bit. Zion, what we were talking about with religion earlier, one of the things that I've realized about religion is that it is, like what you were saying, it's something that works with us to like keep us moving forward, or keep us healthy or alive, or keep civilization intact. We didn't know what STDs were, or what bacteria was, or viruses were, thousands of years ago. But we did know that if you fuck too many people, you're probably going to end up with an STD. And all we knew at that time was that maybe God didn't like when people did that.
Right.
Because it seems like he fucks them up when they fuck everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Syphilis, I mean, it's it's been with people for a really long time, and a lot of diseases are, they have some pretty horrendous physical expressions, and if to people, I mean, it's horrendous now. I mean, you can understand virology, but it's still shocking, to see what a microorganism can do to a person's body,
Yeah.
So.
It's and sure enough, we didn't know what bacteria was or what caused diseases or viruses, but religion pushed people to be less promiscuous, thinking that if you weren't, God would strike you down. Like, God obviously doesn't like prostitutes. He doesn't like when people are, he doesn't like loose women or men who are adulterers or whatever. And the way that people probably proved that to themselves was through STDs. And then, the way hand washing is worked into prayer in Islam. Like, washing your hands is a good way to prevent disease. And if it's a religious, a religious tenet to wash yourself 5 times a day, you're probably going to cut down a great deal of diseases or a great deal of infections.
Yeah, and I mean, these things don't have to be, like, I'm not saying religion has consciously tried to control people, but these are just things you can, observe, and people are going to, there's a really strong tendency for people to want to find it, to correlate something with, with some type of, like, to have, a cause and effect type thing. And when, your understanding of the world is limited, like the wrath of God, it's very appealing, and then and it just kind of births all these customs and practices that may not consciously understand how they're, what type of utility they have for keeping people healthy, or keeping society strong. All they understand is, like, that is God's praise, sort of. That is, the same way a society is healthy is the reflection of God's blessing, or what have you.
Right. And here's another thing too. Like I don't really see it this way myself, but I feel like it's a way that things could be seen. It's a possible perspective someone could have. When you guys were talking about how you go running and you feel good and you feel kind of pumped to have a good conversation or whatever. We don't say to ourselves, well, you know what? The only reason I feel like talking right now, or the only reason I feel kind of energetic or happy, it's not because of it's only because of dopamine. My brain it's being shot into my wherever I don't even know where it goes in your brain. Is that what it does?
Yeah, I mean, well, like, you have neurotransmitters. You have your dopamine, your serotonins.
Yeah.
You got your norepinephrine, and a lot of these are responsible for how our brains process the external environment,
right?
And the types of emotions we have. So you go for a run, and it triggers like a cascade of different processes, and
yeah.
And one of the effects is that you release endorphins, and you feel good because you feel you're literally getting high. But we don't say no one really acknowledges that that they're feeling good because of a chemical, or like a chain of reactions that's happening in their brain.
Yeah.
And, I mean that's it's not because it's also not totally true. I mean, you see, it's not just the physiological response, because it's also the experience. I mean.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is that like we don't write off happiness, by saying like, oh well, you're not happy, dude. You're just your serotonin is working together with your endorphins or whatever to your cortisol levels are lower than usual, and that's why you feel good. It's not because you went on a nice run, or it's not because you had a good time with your friends or went on a nice dinner or whatever. We don't write that off. It's still about the experience.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's an argument that religious people could make there, saying that, just because now we know that it's a virus that causes this or that, or, being, washing your hands gets rid of the germs and stops the spread of disease. Just because we're able to explain the mechanism behind it doesn't mean that it's not God's will.
Okay. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you can get kind of caught up in that, saying, well, it's God's will that this is useful for society,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a logic trap, though, and because you can say that. I mean, again, how do you prove that? And I guess that's where a lot of people want to use faith, or would apply faith. I mean, but I mean that, but then you kind of like, where do you go from there? And I mean, yeah, you can never really know. I mean,
I feel like people. This is one funny thing about humans. People have the capacity to think and imagine, and doesn't matter what you think and what you imagine. The reality just it is as it is. It cannot change. But the way we perceive reality is really different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you perceive reality from a religious frame, it will be totally different.
Right.
If you perceive reality from a scientific frame, it will be totally different. But it doesn't change the reality. It just changed the way you see things.
Yes. Yeah. And that is, well, I mean, isn't your perception reality anyway?
I would
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it's not always the case, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like so if there's no one, I guess there are laws that are never gonna, like laws of nature that are never gonna be broken, right? Is that kind of what you mean by that? Like that's why there is a reality, and that's the difference between reality and perception, is that, like, the whole, are you going to hear a tree if it falls and no one's there? Of course it's going to make a sound, regardless of whether someone's there or not.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Like those laws are always going to be in place.
What is trying to say, for example, an economic phenomena, for example, like an economic crisis, and all the scientists or the scientists,
economists,
yeah, they're trying to build a model to show that it is the reason why we have economic crisis, but they cannot prove it. But they build model after model, and if a person from like a different time frame, different frame, they can see the thing differently. Like, for example, a religious person say, "Is God will? God put us into an economic crisis." For example, per se, just an example. But the fact, the reality is, the economy is in an economic crisis, and different people trying to argue different things, try to fit reality into a model. But reality is just reality. It cannot be fit into any model. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
I think I get it, but I'm not sure about the correlation between that and economics, or the example, I guess.
The way what I want to say is, which by perception is I mean by recognizing patterns, the patterns and the explanation for that patterns or that phenomenon. For example, the economists create a model to explain the pattern of the phenomenon, and for religions, they come up with a different model, a different explanation to fit that phenomenon. And for a scientist, come up with a different model to fit that phenomenon. But the phenomenon is a phenomenon. It is not a model. That's what I'm trying to say. It is not a model. Phenomenon is just a phenomenon itself.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. I'm trying to find an analogy for it to, like, make sure I understand it correctly. But you're kind of saying that any model it's just a perspective. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's like it's like it's like being behind some type of filter. Your senses are basically your filter for external reality.
Yeah, it's all your inputs.
I mean, you're going to, like, you can't possibly take everything in. Some things are going to get filtered, right? But you're going to, so you can never really perceive the whole of reality. You're going to see only what, you're going to perceive only what you're capable of perceiving.
Right.
And, like, you can use that analogy, like, I mean, we can talk about, like, the human eye, how you can't see the entire light spectrum, but, does that mean, what you're experiencing is any less real? Not really, but it's not the whole story. It's not everything. So there's a reality. I mean, there's an external reality, and then there's what you perceive through the lens of your body.
Right. Yes. So something else that I wanted to talk about was your guys' take on, or what do you guys think about, I guess, like, Carl Sagan, I think, said that that consciousness is the universe experiencing itself.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of hit me too when I was reading the the back cover of that book that I just checked out.
Mm. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like, and that's kind of what I was texting you about, Zion. Is that if you look at us as part of the universe and not separate from it, then aren't we the universe looking back at itself, or aren't we like the evolution of life itself is not just to say that it's the evolution of life is an understatement. Like life is the evolution of the universe itself.
Life is the evolution of the universe. I mean, we're part of the universe. That is obvious. We are part of the universe.
Right.
We cannot extinct that the universe is one object and we are not the universe, because we are built with the elements of the universe and we are made up of the universe, and we breathe in the air that's been here for like so long. And the consciousness, I always have questions. Why do we have consciousness? Why do we have thought?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's kind of a tricky statement, because the idea like that we are the universe looking back at itself.
Yeah,
it's
hard.
I think it's the problem. It might with that statement. It views reality as being linear, like time as being linear. And if you take, I mean, if you accept that there's a fifth dimension, that's not really the case. I mean, because time would exist, in the same space, as opposed to like something that progresses, right? So in a fifth dimension, you can move around, and pretty much
Right.
You don't have to move linearly. You can move any way you
want. Yeah.
any way you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just like statements like that. They kind of like, I like the idea, right? I mean, but it almost plays into like the idea that our consciousness is so special,
Right.
and
My question is are you referring to human consciousness or all the living organism consciousness?
No, well, I don't think that there's. I'm not differentiating between us or any other animal, but just the idea of, like, I mean, we might be the best observer of the universe that we're aware of, right? There might be things in beings in the fifth dimension or sixth dimension or whatever. I don't know, but as far as we know, I think we're probably the highest level of observer of the universe that we're aware of. Would you say that?
I don't know. Because it's interesting, because if I just want to give an example on observations, like when a hurricane come into an area, why does all the organism know that this hurricane is coming, and they all like move into a different area, and we don't have that ability,
right?
And
okay, yeah,
and we cannot dissect the thought of these organisms, so I think it's hard to say whether these
one thought is better than
thought is better than another thought, because our whole entire population, almost very special, selective population of humanity but able to come up with like understanding of the universe, because most of us really don't understand the universe, and we don't really care about understanding about the universe.
Yeah.
Only a very small group of people care about it.
Okay, so let's say then that there isn't a difference between us, or that we aren't higher level of observers than anything else. Then aren't all living things still observers? Like, isn't even a plant still an observer? At that level, I mean, that's not even the important part. But I guess for the sake of what we're talking about now, let's just say that all living things are observers in their own way, right?
Because the point is the consciousness.
Yeah. So then, in that case, aren't we? Like, aren't all living things then the universe looking at itself through different perspectives?
I would say it's pretty poetic concept. It's a poetic concept. That
Right.
because we are part of the universe and we are created and we go back to study the whole universe itself. Okay, we are studying ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's really a poetic concept, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree like that. It's a poetic concept. I think the only thing it it brings up for me like the idea that, and I can see maybe this is where religion gets brought into this, is the idea that consciousness has a purpose. That there's a how we perceive consciousness, that there's a purpose to this instead of just being an accident, like a result of our particular evolution. And I think that's really difficult for people to grasp, or to even to want to people would much rather concede that this has a purpose than it's just the result of chaos and circumstance.
Yeah,
I think
right. Just because we can think about things doesn't mean there's a reason for us to do it. What's the reason for there being a star or a sun? What's the reason for a black hole? Right? Is that kind of the same thing? Like if you're reducing consciousness just to another phenomena of the universe.
right, like there's an explanation, but there's not necessarily a reason.
Right.
There or an intention. And I think that is a scary concept.
That is pretty scary. That's pretty bleak.
Yeah, and I don't know why it has to be, but people would like that's that's people would rather not go there, and I'm not sure why.
Right.
Something.
Yeah,
Thought about.
if you want to believe that there is a purpose for it, then you're dipping into like religion, right?
Oh no, I think it would get into philosophy. Because religions, I guess I'm not sure what type of religion we're talking about. Because if religion but created by people, that's different. But religion in terms of like understanding the higher being,
Mm-hmm.
then it's more like philosophy.
Okay.
And yeah, we can answer why, we can answer how, but when we try to impose a purpose on things, why things exist, why the sun exists, why are we here, and what is our goal, and it's really
Yeah, I think
it's poetic,
that's what complicates.
yeah,
That's
it's
where
really
I mean, and maybe it's the wrong question to ask.
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe that is like the ultimate question.
May
Because that's like what religion is trying to do, right? That's like the last like
Yeah.
religion was like, if you look at religion as a person, it's like figuring out ways to keep society moving forward, and then it's looking for ways to keep society healthy and keep people from hurting each other, and then it's like I'm also gonna try to tell people why they're alive.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what they should do.
I personally believe that the higher being of God, aka, they just doesn't care about the small being like us. Let's say he created the whole universe, let's say, but does he have the time to care about each individual planet and each individual persons?
Yeah, well, when you start talking about like that argument, it's
That's more religion.
yeah, because you're conceptualizing
Right.
God and with like through the
lens
lens of
that. It's really tricky concept.
Yeah.
Really fuzzy.
What I think is that there is a God. I think that he, or she, or it.
yeah.
Bro.
Or
bro.
watch some gender neutral pronouns, man.
Yeah, I know. This God thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe set off the Big Bang and then step back and said, "Let me see what happens," and then just let it go from there. Like I don't think that God is wondering what I'm talking about, or what I'm gonna do next. And you could say, I guess he's not wondering because he knows, but I don't think he really like cares or is observing every single person.
I started thinking about when, like, I've heard people, or I've even used like the like, do you ever think that believing there's a God that the idea of God is so incomprehensible that it doesn't bear thinking about? Like an absentee God is basically the same as, like, it isn't. I don't really see how different it is from not believing in a God, you know?
Thinking that there is an absentee God?
Yeah, that there, you know, a God that's like, it's so incomprehensible, it doesn't bear even giving it any thought, because that, you know, there's the same level of involvement, you know, in your. I mean, it has about the same effect on your life
I believe that.
Yeah.
as just totally not believing in the God.
Right.
I believe that there is a God who doesn't believe that he's a God. Who doesn't think or know or believe that he is a God.
You believe that there's a God that doesn't believe that it's a God?
So is it like
we impose the role of God onto him or her or it or they.
Mm.
But, yeah, I would say.
That's
would that
you
be?
Fucking with me right now?
No, I'm serious.
Fuck with me right now. Man.
I'm trying to confuse everyone.
I mean, I like that idea that maybe there's. I mean, that there's maybe. Wouldn't that be sad if this is just like a child's,
Maybe
like,
just a driving force.
just like an accident of some, like, some really, like, just maybe. What if it's just a sense of, it's just scale? You know, it's not even about like power, like omnipotence.
Yeah,
You know, like,
it's the same exact thing. Like there's an ant in an ant farm. It doesn't know that the ant farm was from Target, and so it's in an 8-year-old's bedroom.
Yeah, does that make the 8-year-old like omnipotent? No, it's just a sense of scale. It has all this power.
Yeah,
It's like, I mean, couldn't that?
I want to take that a step further. Like when we look at ants and we study them and we go, oh, okay, well they communicate with pheromones, and the pheromones tell each other, you know, simple messages like where the food is, or the queen is dead, or there are attackers outside of the nest or whatever. Like,
Right.
And we go, oh, okay, well that's what they do. They use pheromones, and that's how they communicate with each other. We don't know though that the same way that we feel a surge of dopamine that makes us happy, we don't know that the ant is actually smelling words the way we hear them. Like, we can't write off the fact that we know that the ants use pheromones to communicate, or that bees do a little dance to tell each other where the flowers are. We can't tell each other that that method of communication is just what it looks like to us and an exchange of chemicals. The same way that, you know, every word that you're speaking to me, like if you told me that you had $1 million for me, I bet my dopamine levels would kind of skyrocket.
Right.
I feel better. And someone would go, like, and you can't write that off. Like, you can't, just because we know that ants use pheromones doesn't mean that the ant doesn't get all fucking pumped up like it's ready to kill someone because the message that it received via the pheromones says that there's an attacker outside. Like, that message that the ant receives might be as effective or affect the ant physiologically the same way that I would be affected if someone said, you know, your brother's outside the house and some dude just kicked his ass and he wants to fight you now, or whatever. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we can't write all that off. And I'm fucking, I don't even know where we were.
Well, I think we were talking about like scale and how, you know, a lot of people want to think about. I mean, usually we want to talk about a God as this higher being, right? This being that's beyond us, you know. And in a lot of ways, you can attribute that to scale, like, you know, with just the fact that something is so much it's so much bigger than you. It's so much outside of you. You know, like if we used scale, you know, using the ant example, you know, and, you know, maybe, you know, whatever, you know, people like to think of God is just something that this is all just the result of scale, you know, something so big, so immense, so beyond us, you know, but it could be equally as accidental,
So let me ask you. Oh, let me pose a question. Why must there is a God?
What's that?
Why must there is a God? Does it have? Is there a necessity of God existence?
You know what, man? I feel like the best proof that we have of God is that every civilization thinks there's a God. Like, how come we all came to that conclusion that there's a creator? Like, it's almost as innate as love is, or as any of the major like tenets of most religions. You know, every religion believes that you shouldn't be killing each other, you shouldn't rape, you shouldn't murder, you should take care of your neighbor. Every religion believes that, and it all, you know, at the top of that pyramid of beliefs is this creator. That's almost to me the best proof that we have that there is a God, because we know there is love because we feel it. And in the same way, I feel like that's the best proof that we have of God, because we generally feel like there is one, or we feel like it's worth the conversation.
Could be. Yeah, I totally understand your point. I totally see your point. Yeah, because the point I'm trying to make because is that the universe is so immense, and like you say, the skeleton in terms of skeleton, since the universe is so immense, it's extremely big. It's extremely big. It's way bigger than the Earth itself, and it's way too big. We cannot comprehend that concept, and we don't know because it's way too big. If there's a higher being or a God that like way bigger than the universe, because the universe is like a ball in his hand. It's like
Or her.
her
Or whatever.
or whatever. Then we are just we are smaller than the atom, the size of atom. We are way smaller than the size of the atom. If the universe is the size of a ball, then we way too small to know.
Right.
Way too small to make a statement. But I totally see your point. But I would argue that it could be the image of God could be due to social contract, could be due to conflict. But I totally see that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my.
There's a I forgot who it was that said that our belief in God is similar to a child's faith in his or her parents. And that as time moves on, we become less attached to our God the way children become less attached to our parents, and eventually, you know, an adult breaks that attachment where you don't need that parent there anymore to take care of you. But I don't know if maybe that's just it comes from that belief that we need something taking care of us because we grow up used to that. So we need to create this figure. You know, even as adults, we need to create this figure. Once we find out our parents are you know, not omnipotent or omniscient, we need to create something that is, because as children we grew up with this thing in our life that we believed was, you know, almighty.
I think if you look at the like Chinese cultures, they have God too, but it's not just on the micro level, like the family level. It's a whole country. How would you rule a whole country? How would you make the whole country to obey one family? To willing to die for one family? So they must. I just feel like this give us the need to create an image to make everyone obey. But that's an extreme case, and yeah, I don't know because go back to our discussion that the way we see things is due to our lens, our perception, and I don't think because the idea of God is too vast to comprehend, so there's no point to argue whether there is a God, there is not a God. It's up to you to believe.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm totally sold on the idea that because many cultures have a religion or a belief in a higher being, that like, because that is so like common, that should be proof that something like that exists, you know.
Mhm.
You know, it would be more interesting to me to know about like people on an individual level, you know, if there's some kind of innate belief, because I mean there have been documented cases of people who are isolated their entire lives through their development, through their childhood, and they never develop language. They don't develop a lot of the social skills that we attribute toward being human. You know, our ability to socialize and to communicate, and you know, a lot of these children, they've been analyzed by people to see if they have some innate belief in God, you know.
Mhm.
But how do you communicate that? Such
Yeah.
an idea, right, with someone who doesn't have language.
Right.
It's I think it's more it's you know, I don't know if the ability to, like, the fact that we have language and can express our inner thoughts. You know, the fact that like you and I can share. I mean, we inhabit totally different bodies, right? But I can understand you, and you can understand me, and you basically, through communication, you get to inhabit someone else's body. You know, you get to understand that there is something outside of yourself. There's another.
Oh, dude, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and without language, when you don't have language, you can't really do that. It's, you know, and I mean, like symbolic language. You know.
Yeah. Okay, so let me throw this out there then. I'm sorry. Did you want to continue? Were you not done or?
No, I think yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of far out also, but I like your idea of by communicating with me, you are in my body or you're in my brain. Like this is a form of filtered telekinesis, you could say. Like you know my thoughts because I'm telling them to you, and I could hide whatever I want, but it is kind of like I'm letting you into my brain or my psyche, right?
Yeah, your experience. Yeah.
Right. So so people like the religious belief right now anyway, or even I think in a lot of different religions, is that God is in people and God is love, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we want. That's how it should work, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So um if someone grew up, and this is there's like holes all over this, but I'm kind of just still putting it out there. If someone grows up not around other people and without any love, like fuck religious texts and all that stuff. I'm talking about the actual God, like without man's influences or man's revisions of what that means. Are they maybe growing up without the influence of the creator, because the influence of the creator can kind of only be brought on by other people and by love and um, based on the belief that God is in people and that God is love. If you're not around people and you don't experience love, are you not experiencing God, or you're only experiencing a limited version of him, like through nature or whatever?
Well, if that's the case, I mean, then the concession is that God is not omnipresent and God is not omnipotent. Because if there's some reality where God is absent, that would place some type of constraints on God, right? And God, by definition, cannot have any constraints.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, well, that's why I guess I would say like a limited. But there's no such thing as a limited version of God, is there? Like a demo version.
No. Right? Yeah. You can't have. Sorry, I only got beta God. I don't. I got God on beta. Like
I can receive love. I just can't give it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to notice that you believe that God is not constrained. Because how do you know that God is not constrained?
Well, I mean, I don't. I'm just going by the definition.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's just interesting for me to notice.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that God have infinite amount of power.
right. If a being,
Yeah.
well, because I think people talk about how, the complexity of, they cite the complexity of the physical world, right? And what they know of it, and the idea that if there is a God, then God has somehow created these rules and created this reality to work in a specific way, and that complexity should reflect on the abilities of God, right? Or the power of God.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I thought you say that not influenced by any text and any like human text about God. I thought we were talking about the higher being.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I see your point.
yeah. Oh, okay. I guess my buddy, we run out of time with he.
So
Okay.
I gotta go, buddy.
Okay. No, but I'm so glad we were able to talk, dude. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, I mean, see you, man. So where were we at, man?
Yeah, we're figuring it all out, dude.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long way. Yeah, I do feel like there are things that happen in life where it's hard for me to think that even if there isn't a God that's like watching my every move, pissed off when I jack off or whatever, I don't. Even if there isn't that, it's hard for me to not see life as some sort of like trial or something sometimes.
Why?
Because there are things that happen where I just can't help but think of it as like a straight, like things line themselves up perfectly to become a test of like the will or morality and things like that. Like it's almost too much sometimes to think that there isn't going to be a moment in the future where I look back or I'm able to look back and consider whether I did the right thing at this moment or that moment.
What do you think you gained something from that?
Do I think I gained something from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of believe in the idea of like karma and like reincarnation. I don't know. Yeah, I think I do gain something from it.
I mean, so like that type of Sea Lenderman.
Hey, Zion, let's turn the video on really quick and see if it works.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's getting sexy, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, you're thinking about your life, right? And how I don't know, maybe the moment when you die, you're gonna think about the conduct of your life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and again, this isn't like a scientific thing. I'm basing it off like near-death experiences. Like they're common. I mean, there's like a lot of things in common in near-death experiences, regardless of the person's religion or whether they even have a religion.
How do you mean?
Like people, like it's a common thing to have this moment where you reflect on your entire life and you see things from an outsider's perspective with your ego taken out of the picture. So all those little things that you did that you maybe thought were funny or you were just looking after yourself, you see them the way an outsider would. Where your emotion is taken out of it and this is what it looked like to the world.
Okay.
That's like a common thing in near-death experiences.
And you think that gives people a better like frame of reference to understanding whether or not they had lived their life in a moral way, or
Yeah, like it leads me to believe that there is a measuring stick, or that we are reviewed for our choices by something.
talking about being judged, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but it's like, but the whole
Talking
idea,
about
like
judgment, boy.
the way the way it usually plays out, according
Uh,
to the people that I've the experiences that I've read and like watched on video, YouTube and stuff like that, is that the judgment was self-imposed, and it ties itself into the idea that God is in us already, because the judgment is self-imposed by that person.
okay.
Because you see everything clear as day, like all your ego's not involved anymore. So at the time I thought it was funny, but I heard a person's feelings, and now I see that because I watch it from an outsider's perspective without my ego being clouding the way.
You know, I was thinking about like the way I was raised, and like I was raised Jehovah's Witness, um, and I'd like to think that um, that it didn't have as profound an effect on the way I think about things. Um, but I'm, I wonder, like you can never really know the impact of like it's hard to quantify the impact of your early experiences as a kid. Um, we don't really know, like when a developmental window closes and when another one like opens.
Yeah,
Um, and
scientifically we kind of do, but I get what you're saying also.
yeah, they're porous. Like
Yeah. Yes.
they're generalized, right? I mean, but it's hard to know the impact of things, and I really believe like that my religious background, really, like I can't escape that.
Yeah.
It when um and I would be curious to know, how if like did you have a religious upbringing?
Not really. It was like sort of there. Like we were the kind of Catholics who went to Christmas or went to mass on Christmas and Easter and whatever,
Okay,
and that's like it. A
all
couple
right.
other random Sundays throughout the year, maybe.
Did you have any family member that was more involved?
No, but I was scared as shit of God when I was really young.
Okay, yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something to that type of. I mean, because sometimes I wonder, you know, what is more right? Like am I doing things because I, you know, because I have this fear of, some type of punishment, or that I've been imbued with this sense of wrath, like if I don't do the right thing, or do I do things? Do I just not do terrible shit because it's not in me, like because I don't have any desire
Well,
to do
okay.
it?
Yeah, and here's where the crossroads is as far as I can like think of. I feel like
Hmm.
it doesn't even matter whether you did it out of fear or not, because again, when you look back, it doesn't matter. Like it's not. There's no like. You don't get to say like, oh well, he just didn't kill that dude because he was scared of going to hell. No, you just didn't kill that dude.
Right.
That's it. Like you just good thing you didn't kill that guy because that's not good. Um. So it's kind of like when you have a really harsh parent. Like I don't like every single thing about the way my dad raised me, but sometimes
Uh-huh.
I do think to myself like, man, is that how you have to do it? Like is there gonna is my future child gonna have to like dislike some things about me so that they end up a decent person?
Hmm.
And it's kind of like maybe I behaved out of fear sometimes of my dad, but the bottom line is I behaved, and it's made me into like a decent person now.
Okay.
So what's the difference? And when you take the ego out of it, then it's even less evident that you did it out of fear or out of love. You just didn't do it. Maybe you were scared shitless, and that's why you didn't commit whatever the sin is that we're talking about. You know?
Right. Do you? I mean, I wonder. It makes me think like, does that make someone a good person? Does the absence of I mean, you know, if is someone equally like, can you really evaluate an action, you know, that's done out of fear against, like, can you, versus like someone who doesn't do something because they just don't have it in them? Like, you know, you can not kill someone because you are afraid of going to prison and, you know, all the horrible shit that happens there. Or you can not kill someone because you don't want to fucking kill them.
Right.
Like, that's just not in your constitution.
Yeah.
You know?
So when there is that, you know, the life review that we're talking about at the end, do you think like whoever the judge is still, you know, penalizes you because you would have done it, but you're a minority and you knew that you would have ended up in prison, so you didn't do it. So we're still going to punish you for it because you would have done it if you were a white guy, because a white guy would have fucking walked. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's like, you know, I mean, there's a question of, like, I mean, you know, there's like the whole idea of some type of punishment beyond this, like, reality. It bothers me because, like, there's intention, there's like intentionality there. I mean, a lot of people don't do bad things for the wrong reasons, and that's not, I don't find that to be equally moral. You can do a good thing for the wrong reasons, and that makes the difference, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a whole nother idea of, like, you know, I think horrible shit all the time, like, all the time, you know?
Yeah.
I don't act on it.
Right.
Does that make me, you know, I mean, I'm functioning within society, but
does that make you a better person?
I don't know. And in like, in terms of,
like, no harm, no foul, you know?
Yeah.
And if you look at, like, I guess an analogy that I'm thinking of is athletes. When you look at dudes like Mike Tyson or Michael Jordan or any other, you know, notorious winners, what they have in common isn't this love of winning. It's this fear of losing.
Okay.
And we don't look at them as scared. We look at them as winners.
Right.
Right? Like, they hate, like, Kobe fucking hates losing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Does.
He hates losing. It's not that he loves winning, but that's just the opposite. That's just the effect of not losing is you win.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about morality, you know?
Right.
Or about not doing, and even like what we consider, I mean, this goes back to how, like what we consider to be moral actions, you know, having like their roots within religions, which, you know, may have had like subconscious utility for the health of a society.
Yeah, it was just conducive to survival. It was just good for us to follow the rules.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of off topic, but you know, you mentioned like the final judgment, whatever, you know, and that to me, like that whole idea of like some punishment that awaits people, you know, and a lot of people, or reward even, you know, that's totally the wrong idea, you know, or the wrong reason to do anything. I mean, if you really want to talk about like altruism and you know, doing things for selfless reasons, I mean, you know, the idea that there's this reward and a punishment, you know, a punishment that first of all lasts forever, you know, or that's what a lot of people believe.
Yeah.
It's like,
but
you know,
wouldn't
you can
that
pick apart?
Yeah, like, wouldn't that scare you straight though? Like, just
Right.
I don't think it is. I don't think, because I this is we're just on a crazy like tangent now, right? So I don't
Yeah,
think that I think
it's
that
just
reincarnation is what happens. I think we're reincarnated. So I feel like, wouldn't saying that you're gonna suffer in hell eternally just like be the most effective way to never have you like commit any sins? You know,
yeah.
like
It
again,
should.
it's just that ultimate threat.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're in a religion that believes in a hell, which most of them do, like, why would you ever? It seems like fundamentalism is the most logical thing.
Hell yeah.
Because, like, why would you even risk, like, oh, well, maybe, I thought, God was kind of a little more lenient,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
why don't you just go for the default?
That's exactly what I feel too. And one of the things that took me away from religion, and I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm coming back to like believing in God again. Um, but and I'm separating religion from God some of the time.
Right.
But one of the things that pulled me away from religion was seeing people who believed in God just without a doubt. They were 100% in on it, but then
Uh,
they interpreted it so loosely, or they weren't like fundamentalist about it. And
yeah.
I feel like, dude, if you think that God is as powerful as you say He is, why would you ever like deviate from what He says the law is? I'd be
Right.
scared as hell to ever do that. I wouldn't want to like upset Him at all.
Yeah.
So the idea of like seeing people like priests and shit who are raping kids, like that was the biggest turnoff to me. Like stuff like that happening, or people who are super hypocritical. Like
Yeah.
for me at first, that killed the entire notion of God,
Uh,
because I figure like, and really what I realized that I was doing was I was moving away from religion more so than God.
right.
Like they're separate.
Yeah. I mean, that, like, y and that's where people, like, I think they get the argument like conflated. I mean, you can argue, there are all kinds of reasons why religion, is wrong, or, its beliefs or notions, like, you can find flaws in all of them pretty much,
Yeah.
things that aren't like logical. Um, and but that doesn't necessarily, I don't see how that's like like how the idea of a god is incompatible with not believing in a religion. Believing in a god. How that can be completely separate.
Yes. Yeah. And what I think is that religion is just a template for people who maybe would have a loose compass otherwise. Like, first of all, I do kind of think that whether you're behaving a certain way out of fear, um, or out of your own morality, uh,
Mhm.
or having a good moral compass, I feel like the end result is the same. So if there was that judgment at the end of your life, you would pass anyway, and it wouldn't matter if you didn't do this or that because you were scared, or you didn't do it because you were actually a genuinely good person. So, um, dude, I'm losing my train of thought.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
I was like, why do you believe in a judgment?
Um, because of like what I've read and like people's near death experiences, and also because
Oh,
of when I smoked salvia.
okay.
Like I experienced all that.
You felt a judgment, or
Yeah.
maybe like an appraisal of your life.
Yes. And it was weird because like I at the time I didn't like have such a strong belief in God. Um, but and this is the same thing as what we were talking about earlier, right? When the ants, we don't separate the chemical reaction from the emotion.
Okay.
When we're feeling happy, we don't write that off as our dopamine receptors being in full effect and our cortisol levels being low, and it just results in a happy feeling. We just say we're happy, right? So when I
Yeah.
talk about that I smoked salvia and it gave me this experience, I don't think to myself, that, oh, well, you just smoked salvia and your brain went nuts for a few minutes, so you had this crazy reaction and now you're back to normal. The experience is still very real, right?
Okay.
So the emotion involved and the memory of it, I feel like it's a thing that happened to me, and there's no separating that. Like I don't write it off because it was salvia, right? So, like I said, I wasn't very religious at the time, or very like a strong believer in God. It was something I'd been kind of thinking about again, and I did like hope that something powerful happened when I smoked it. Right? I wanted like to learn something. Okay, and for a while I didn't realize that I had learned something. But what happened when I smoked it is that I was gone from here, like, and there was no recollection of why I wasn't here anymore. So I like at the time in the moment I wasn't thinking to myself, oh, it's just the salvia.
Right.
I was just in a new place and not understanding what was happening, and everyone I heard, it was so weird, man. I heard the music that people talk about, and it was just like
what music?
Like what it sounded like was this chord being hit on just 1,000 different octaves. Like this like just powerful chord being struck, and it was just moving down all these octaves, and it was just like this singular note, but just moving up and down.
Just one note.
Sort of like it was changing, and it wasn't like it wasn't melodic, but it was just like, I don't know, like if you could get the THX sound,
Okay.
in the theater.
Oh yeah.
Like if you heard that, and then it was hitting different notes, like different chords, and just moving different octaves, and it was never off, but it wasn't melodic. It wasn't like I could remember the melody of the sound, but it was just like like just all these notes just in unison being like just coming at me more powerful than anything ever. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was like that, and within that sound, I could like that sound was communicating with me, and it was every person who had ever cared about me, or every person that I had ever loved, and in that sound. So I understood it as words, even though it wasn't words being spoken to me. The same way that I was saying earlier that an ant might interpret words as the smell, the pheromones, but the ant accepts those pheromones as words. You know what I'm saying? Like I was taking in this sound, but the sound meant things to me. And what the sound was saying, and what the sound was everyone that had ever cared about me. And what the sound was saying is that we've seen everything you've ever done and we love you. And it was just this thing hitting me over and over again, like this just like reassurance. We've seen everything you've ever done and we love you. And I was just thinking like, what the hell's happening right now? And no one would say what happened to me, but they'd keep on saying, you're okay, don't worry, you're fine, we love you, we've seen everything you've ever done and we love you. And I was like, wait, tell me what happened. Am I dead? And they were like, don't worry, we love you and you're fine, and we've seen everything you've ever done and we love you. It just kept on hitting me with that. And I got these glimpses of like my mom and my sister and my brother, me being like my primary like guardians in life. And like time was kind of like not a thing anymore. So I was kind of getting a glimpse of what would happen if I had stayed there. And like my brother, again, this is just sounds, right? But my brother was explaining to me through these, THX notes.
Okay.
That like everything that we had ever experienced here on Earth was just like a sample of reality. Like now I was in reality, and like colors that I had seen here, things that I had heard here, feel like emotions that I had here were just kind of like to keep me satisfied until I got to the actual reality. And then I started thinking to myself that I knew it. It literally felt like a curtain had been pulled up, and now I was in reality. And I was like, I knew it. I knew that like that this life was too much. Like, why was I worried about work, and why was I worried about money and all these things? Like, I knew it wasn't real. That started coming to me like really powerfully. Like just the knowledge that like I had worried so much over like these things that didn't matter.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that I had lived wrong, you know, not really
Okay.
saying that, but just that, yeah, Bobby, you were right for thinking that money was stupid, or that, you know, it's dumb that you have to work 40 hours a week and you only get 2 weeks yourself out of every year to yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are all weird things. But now you're not there anymore, you know.
Mhm.
So I kept on like questioning what was happening, and everyone through this sound is telling me to relax and telling me they love me, they see everything I've ever done, and it's okay. And at the very end, like I just wanted to like kind of like deny it, and the only actual voice that I ever heard that was like a voice, you know, that wasn't like just part of the sound, was my mom's voice, and she was like, "Bobby, it's okay, like you're fine, come on already." And she was talking to me just the way she would talk to me, you know.
Right. When she was saying "come on," like what was she expecting you to do?
Okay, so in the trip, I was like laying down, and I had
Uh-huh.
this feeling that if I stood up and moved forward, I was moving forward into this new existence. And if I rolled backwards, sort of like did a backflip, sort of while
Mhm.
laying down, you know, you just throw your legs over your head. If
Uh-huh.
I did that, I was gonna go back to life, to here.
Okay.
And I was so like unsure of what was happening that I was just gonna like bail out of it. And my mom was just like, "No, just come forward."
Okay.
You know what I mean? Um, and then as soon as that happened, I got this feeling that I was like sitting in my dad's truck that my dad
Okay.
had when I was like a really young kid, that I felt
Wait,
comfortable in.
so you stood up?
No, I still didn't do it. I
Okay.
still didn't do it. But I got the feeling that I was in my dad's truck, which is the truck that he
Uh-huh.
had from the time I was born till I was about 11. Um, and I felt really comfortable in there, right? So
Uh-huh.
I was feeling that as I was in this experience. And I was like, okay, if I heard my mom and this truck, and I feel like I'm in my dad's truck right now, I
Mhm.
believe what's going on, and I'm just gonna go forward and move forward, you know.
Okay.
And then when that happened, I came out of it. I woke up, and
Wow.
that was the end of it. So that happened, and then I was just freaked out by it. And then a little later, I started realizing that probably was the most powerful thing I could have learned, just like I had asked, you know, in the
Right.
beginning. And then I went to New Mexico a few months after that, and I talked to my uncle about it. And he's had he's had a lot of experiences in his life. He was MIA twice in Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's just kind of happy with himself now. You know, he hangs out in New Mexico and he plays music, and he does like, you know, jobs here and there, like construction jobs. He's retired now. He just does
Okay.
you know, whatever he wants pretty much. Um,
Yeah.
and I told him what happened, and he didn't look at me like I was crazy or anything. Like I said, he's had a lot of life behind him, you know. And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, the reason that you felt all that love is because God is love,
Mhm.
and uh, and the reason that it was your family and not, you know, some dude with a white beard sitting on a golden chair is
Yeah.
because that is why you lived. Like some people live for God, so that's what they're gonna see. But I lived for the people around me, or I live
Yeah.
for the people around me. So God or whatever it is showed itself. It came to me as that.
Wow.
So like someone who's devoutly Christian, you
Right.
know, the creator or whatever it is goes, okay, well, I'm gonna put on this beard and this robe and this six pack and I'm gonna be Jesus. So,
Right.
but for me, that's not
Gotta have that.
yeah, I gotta have the abs. For me, it wasn't. That's not what God was.
Right.
For me, it was the people around me, my good friends, my family.
I wonder, do you ever consider like what might have happened if you'd done the opposite? Like if you hadn't stood up but you'd rolled back.
Yeah, I don't know. And then like I know it's not possible. Like I would have been the first person to ever die from salvia, but and for anyone who's listening right now that wants to try to get me in trouble at work, salvia's legal, bitch. You can buy it at a smoke shop. Um,
Just nip that in the bud.
I was gonna throw that out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like someone did ask, well, do you think maybe you were dying from it? Maybe that
Mhm.
was a legit near-death experience, you know?
Yeah.
And you were dying of an overdose from salvia, and this is someone who doesn't know anything about it.
Right.
But for a second, I was like, whoa, maybe. But no,
Mm.
I don't think so. I mean, that's just not a thing that could happen.
Right.
So yeah.
But still, what do you, I mean? But you did. I mean, you didn't do. You had two choices. You know, could
Yeah.
have, and you did one. And now we. I mean, now we know. Like you're here. You know, we know.
Well, but you know what? I didn't get to do what I wanted to do because at the point that I heard my mom and then I felt like I was sitting in my dad's old truck, I was ready to
Right.
give in. And then I just was pulled out of it. Like
Oh, so you never stood up or rolled.
No, it just
Okay.
wore off.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, at the moment that I was choosing, which is almost strange in itself.
Hmm.
You know?
That's kind of like it's. I think what's kind of hard for like anyone to try to understand is like, you know, people want to know where were you? Like, what did you see? You know, like were you in a room?
Okay,
Like,
so
what were you? Yeah.
yeah, here's what I saw. It like what happened. The first thing that happened to me was that everything, like my whole field of vision, became like this 2D thing, like a canvas in front of me, and
Okay.
it looked almost like a garage, like it started rolling up. You know, when you look at like
Okay. Like a garage door.
like a garage door, yeah, like you know the ones that roll. It
Yeah.
looked like that, and it started rolling over me, and like again in the sound, I was like told, I guess, or I understood that what was happening was that my brain was disconnecting from reality, and that our reality here is part the environment and then part our brain, and our brain sort of completes the simulation. So the way you have you have an Xbox, then you have the game on a CD. You know, my brain was the Xbox, and reality was the CD. And you can't play the game unless you have both. So I was coming away from it, and my brain wasn't completing the picture anymore. So where I had seen things in great detail and I had seen depth, that was all removed now because my brain wasn't connected to it.
Okay.
So everything, like I said, just looked like a flat 2D canvas, and I couldn't move forward anymore. Like it was really hard to get up at first, and I just felt like this like super strong static when I tried to move against it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was almost like I was being shocked
Interesting.
by moving forward. Like my whole body was like buzzing when I tried to like get up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you felt like you were 2D.
What's up?
You were part of like. You felt like you were two-dimensional.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
It was wild, dude.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And since then it just changed my whole shit.
Would you do Salvia again?
I kind of, you know what's weird, man? I kind of don't want to do it again because I feel like I got out of it what I wanted to. And I also,
Right.
like, if I catch myself there again, honestly, dude, if I catch myself there again, where I'm back in that spot, not knowing why I got there, I want it to
Right.
be because I died. Like, next time that happens, I'll be like, I'll think to myself, oh, you died.
Okay.
Because
Wow.
this would be my second time there.
And it seems what? It seems like almost. It seems wrong to be there a second time
Well,
because you did it.
yeah, and there's also the idea that if it was completely different, and you know, the second time I smoked salvia, I was a spoon or something stupid, like it would just belittle the experience.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I was just a piece of cheese, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it was weird.
Oh, well, you were fucking high. Well, yeah, that explains it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like right now, let's say someone walked up behind me and shot me in the head while we're recording this. I would.
That would be fucking horrifying.
It'd be terrible, right?
Yeah.
But I would know that what happened is that I just died. Like
Okay.
if it went the same way, if all of a sudden I was in that 2D land again, I was hearing the sound and the voices and everyone who loved me, I would just accept, oh, you died. You know?
Yeah, man. I don't know. There's like, does it? Oh, man. That whole idea that like we can experience beyond, beyond our bodies. Like once your body dies, like can you experience?
Yeah. I don't understand the argument that
I mean-
people make about consciousness not being able to cease existing. You know, people say that the layman's argument, I guess, is that consciousness is energy, and energy can't cease to exist. Therefore, our consciousness never ends. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, like the more you understand like how your brain works, you know, the more you can understand, you know, and it's really complex. Like, what is a thought? Like, how, like, is it something, you know, like it's really hard to abstract a thought and think of it. Like, is it in my brain? Is it a part of it? Is it part of, like, you know, your cortical structures?
Can you put it in a
and-
bag?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is it something like tangible, you know, and
Right.
instead of just being like, you know, people, you know, you can't unknow yourself,
Yeah.
and that's the definition of death, you know, of dying.
Yeah.
Not, you know, like, you're not there anymore,
Right.
you know. And like, I want to believe that I'll be able to experience, like, to know that I'm, when I'm dead, that I'm dying,
Mhm.
that I have died, you know. And I don't know if that's going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe drugs are like the closest thing we can get to, like, understand. I mean, because they warp our consciousness, you know, they change it.
Yes.
And it's the closest we can get.
Yeah, and it's weird that we, like in all of, you know, human civilization, all of human history, there's only been a couple years where those types of substances have been illegal. Like, I don't even want to call them drugs, because when I think of drugs, I think of like meth and, you know, addictive things that are made by man that can kill you in one shot. You know,
Yeah.
or things that you can overdose from. Like, there's a big difference between, you know, OxyContin and marijuana. You know.
Yeah.
So I don't like calling things like salvia or marijuana drugs, because they're it puts such a negative light on them. But yeah, there's only been a short period of time where those substances are looked down upon.
Yeah.
And other societies have seen those things as a way to enlighten yourself or educate yourself or understand existence a little more.
Right. Like, to you know, to change, to enter into different realms, like,
Right.
you know, and whether or not they thought of it as, you know, like the spirit realm or whatever, like some type of, like, communing with some type of, like, spirituality, you know, or as, like, maybe I think of it like getting closer to what death is like, you know, not experiencing yourself anymore. You know, it, like, damn, I totally lost where I was going with that.
Yeah, well, I just feel like we have so many questions, and we have available resources, you know, that other societies have recognized as that we just are, like, we vilify them,
Yeah.
instead of seeing them as tools.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned something when I did mushrooms,
Yeah.
and, you know, so many people, you know, have positive experiences on psychedelic drugs.
Mhm.
You know? Yeah, it really bothers me, like how, like, the way drugs are perceived, what is even like considered a drug,
Yeah.
and what isn't, like, what is socially acceptable.
Right.
Like, you know, it's you know, maybe it's frowned upon, but it's not uncommon to get, like, you can, you know, I can just get shit faced if I wanted, and, like, you know, come close to, like, I could try to kill myself tonight, And there are people who are trained who have had experiences like pumping people's stomachs or giving them IVs. Like they know what to do when you have alcohol poisoning,
Right.
Like it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't really shock anyone. It would be, it would inconvenience them, and they'd say, "Oh, that's fucked up. Like, you shouldn't drink so much."
Right.
Whatever. But it wouldn't really it wouldn't. It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's
Like
and
there was a dude in Colorado, right? Who I guess he ate cannabis and then he jumped off a building or something like that. And
that's a story.
Yeah, that's a story. But how many
Yeah.
people, between the time that story that took place and the time that showed up on my Facebook timeline, how many people had died in drunk driving accidents?
Right.
You know?
Or alcohol poisoning.
Yeah. How many dudes
Yeah.
just got their asses kicked because they were drunk and talking shit?
Yeah, or beat their wives.
Right.
Or beat their kids,
Yeah.
Commit horrible fucking atrocities.
Right.
Because they were too fucked up. Just the whole culture of binging, like binge drinking and
Yes.
shit. It's completely acceptable, even if it's frowned upon. Like it's understood, like it's tolerated.
It's just
to an extent.
we see it as a necessary evil, sort of, or just a thing to
Right.
to be dealt with.
Yeah, it's like, oh, alcohol is not going anywhere. It's a social thing. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
It's Miller
dude,
time,
why?
baby. It's Miller time.
Yeah. It's always gonna be. That's the thing. I mean, I was thinking about something someone had said to me, during a lecture. You have to beware of the tyranny of the present.
Mhm.
The idea that the way things are done, shouldn't dictate how how they are done in the future. They shouldn't have to continue.
Wow, yeah, dude. The present is a tyrant.
Yeah.
It really is. There's all these beliefs that come with it, right? And you're locked
Yeah.
into living a certain way because you're not 5-dimensional. Because you're subject to time and you're stuck in this time that you're in. And this is the way we think right now, so this is the way you have to be.
Yeah. And it scares people or makes them angry.
Yeah.
And they they react, to even the suggestion that, how could you think that? How could you think about a world where we don't I meet women, we go to a bar and then, we already wanted to fuck each other, but we only did it because, oh, now we're liquored up. Ooh, let's get dangerous.
Yeah.
I was lowered my inhibitions.
Yeah. I got a fuck
shit.
pass.
Yeah. Dude, what is that shit? And we may not talk, nobody, there's no set of rules, nobody acknowledge, this is not written somewhere, but we know how things work. If I told you, people know this implicitly, how society works, but there's no codified rules.
Right.
Right. There's the law and stuff, but they're hidden norms.
Yeah.
And alcohol is a big one. It's huge, and it's totally fucking harmful.
Right.
And
man, I never thought about it the way you said it. The present is a tyrant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I came to, when I was telling you that when I had smoked salvia, that I understood that, it is kind of silly that we have to work 40 hours a week, and it is kind of silly that I have so much rent to pay and that I'm worried about my car payment and this and that, or I dress a certain way and, do all these societal, I'm subscribing to all these societal norms.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're talking about. That's
Yeah,
what I was kind of realizing, is that I was just subject to the time that I was in and the place that I was in.
Yeah. It's almost overwhelming, to think about, because once you start doing that, you realize, well, why do I do all these things,
Yeah.
And maybe they serve, you could argue, well, fuck, man, Bobby, you need a place to live, you gotta, you got to have an apartment, but it's like, I mean, but you know, I guess you could always go back to like, do you really have to? Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, and I think it's harder to accept that, like, do we want it this way, or are we just doing it this way because this is how it's done?
Yeah. It's
And
laid out for us.
right.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say, like, am I doing, like, it's because some things are so like subtly oppressive, like they're so like we do some we sacrifice like so much time doing annoying shit that no one really wants to believe that they're doing it because they want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier to accept that shit if you think you have to do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. If you think too hard, you'll just go crazy because you'll realize that you don't have to do anything.
Right. Like, and then like, yeah, you wouldn't just like fucking lose it. I mean,
and then you go, oh shit, I'm doing it because I want to, huh? Isn't that why I'm doing it? And then you'll fucking hate yourself.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's better not to think that deeply about it.
Yeah.
That's what happens, I think. Because you look.
I just got a little.
What's up?
I got a little sad, dude. I got a little depressed.
You're doing it because you want to, though, huh?
I don't know, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. When a while back I had an internship, and I was working less, so there was a day where I worked on my car, because I really kind of didn't have money to like fix it myself or to go take it somewhere, and I realized that all I'm doing at work is exchanging my time for money. I mean, it's obvious, right? But I had never seen it that clearly, where I either was, if I was working full time at that time, I wouldn't have been able to take a day off to fix my car, but I would have spent a day at work, and then I would have had this money that I would have used to give someone else to do it.
Right.
But instead, I did it myself because I didn't have money, and now I have this skill. Now I can change my alternator again when I need to, or change someone else's for him. And I just realized how we're just throwing our time away, and then we give the value of that time to someone else to do things for us.
Like feeding you or sheltering you?
Yeah, like if I didn't have to work all day, I would cook my own food. But because I work all day, I don't feel like cooking, so I'm going to go buy food with the money that I made from working.
Yeah.
And it's just like, people say time is money, and I think it's also money is time.
Yeah. I mean, well, as long as what you're using money to exchange for the things you need to live.
Yeah.
Because money also buys you shit you just want.
Right.
And I think people forget that, like, the shit you need, is totally different. Like, there's stuff you want and there are things you need. And, the ultimate reason for a job, that everyone, is to provide you the things you need, right? Mm-hmm. But like, then there would be no incentive to get a better job.
Yeah.
Like, if there were just like a 1-to-1 value, like what you did was exchanged for all the things you needed.
Yeah.
Needed. Yeah. I'm sorry, man. Excuse that. Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't work that way. People want things that, like you want other shit,
Right.
And so you're willing to, you want a better job that pays you more, or you're going to work more hours. You're going to exchange more time,
and then you can buy things that you wouldn't be able to make yourself.
Yeah.
Like I can change my own alternator, but I can't make myself a laptop. But I really want a laptop.
Yeah.
So if I exchange my time, I can give my time to someone else for a laptop. You know, I
Yeah.
can give Best Buy my time, what I mean is money, and then they give me a
Right.
laptop.
Yeah. And it's like, why do you want that thing?
Because now I can get inside your mind from you know hundreds of miles
That's
away.
true. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
um, the thing that I think like we'll wrap it up after this.
All right.
But the thing that I think time or money is most I think it's most well spent on traveling, because that's something that you know the only way you'd be able to travel somewhere if you couldn't buy a plane ticket would be by a boat, and if you couldn't afford a boat ticket, you'd have to build a
Yeah.
boat, and you'll probably die. So you'll probably just kill yourself trying to get to Costa Rica or something,
Yeah.
if you didn't have money to do it. So I feel like that's almost like the best way to spend money is on travel, because that does enrich you. It is increasing, your views of the world. It's a cool experience, and it's something that you definitely would not be able to do if you didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
And you can't. I mean, obviously, I guess now there's definitely things we should spend money on, and like a laptop being one of them. Um, things that make things like this possible. You know what I mean? Like we're
Okay.
communicating with people on the internet. They're gonna hear us, or I'm able to talk to you right now, even though you're hours away.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather exchange my time to have a laptop to be able to do this with you than give my time up by walking to Berkeley.
Yeah.
Because that's the only truly free way to do it, would be to walk there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I was saying, travel I think is the best way to spend your money, because there's no alternative almost, and it's so enriching. It does so much for you.
Yeah. I think it does. Yeah. So what did we learn today, man?
I don't know, dude.
We covered a lot of things.
We did cover a lot of things. I think when we post this, I'm probably gonna let people know. The first 40 minutes we talked about this. The second hour we talk about this or that. Yeah.
Has it been an hour and 40?
It's been 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking we talked for like 1 hour, but this kind of conversation it can go so many different places.
Yeah. I mean, because people are, you're essentially like, you're sharing how you experience the world with the things you think about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so much in the world, there's so much like to think about, to talk about.
Yeah.
And
it is all like closely related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then we'll wrap up and say our actual goodbyes.
All right, man.
But anyway, thanks Zion for coming on. This is Beyond the Blvd number 2, and if you guys don't follow us right now on Instagram, go to Below the Blvd. That's BELOTHEBLVD, and that's what we are on Twitter also. And find us on Facebook. Same thing with the spaces where they should be in those 3 words. So, thanks guys for listening. See you later.